Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you for asking me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's going to be lovely. This is the first of a series of conversations about really bringing positive psychology to life with real world examples. Positive psychology is the science of well-being and optimal functioning, which just seems perfect for right now with everything that's going on in the world. And I just wanted to introduce you and explain to anyone who's listening why we're having the conversation today. The positive psychology interventions that I've been looking at are ones based around being in nature. And you have a lovely business in a beautiful location, and we've talked many times about how nice it is that you've got that space and lovely area to be in. So that's why you're here to talk this morning. So a little bit of background. I first met you, it's a year ago, at Nimble Networking.
Yeah.
And you were telling us about setting up the glamping business and how you were just at the start of it.
That's right, yes, and it was all pre-COVID, so we weren't even thinking about what was to, what could potentially interrupt our best laid plans. So yes, it was. We were in the middle of getting our tents, the safari tents, kitted out, and all the furniture and soft furnishings and making them lovely and cozy, and so that was where we were back in January, and it was all very exciting, and we very aware there was a lot of sort of a hard work, few months of hard work ahead of us, but lots of great ideas, and I think we kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to have a couple of safari tents on our farm was we were looking to a way to diversify the farm. So we are arable farmers. We grow mostly cereal crops, and have done for, well, I mean, yes, the farm's been running for about well, David's been involved since he left college, and his father took it on from David's mother's father, so David's maternal grandfather. And they did have livestock then, but then they moved out of livestock and concentrated on cereal crops such as wheat, and also potatoes was a big crop that we grew for many years. And then sort of the farming world changes as it does, so we wanted to have a look at another way of getting a bit of income on the farm. And we had this lovely little field located by the farm, which we thought would be perfect for glamping.
Yes.
So and many friends have been and said what a beautiful place you have. And sometimes when you live somewhere, you don't always see it. And when people remind you of what you have to offer, and you thought, well, yeah, I mean, how wonderful would it be to be able to open it up and stay and enjoy this space that we have, not everybody has access to.
And it's beautiful, and we've got these lovely pictures that you've given me, so I'm going to spread them out through our conversation, but I'll just go back to the slide before, because I think this sort of sets the tone for what we're looking at. This is a piece of research that I've looked at recently, and the title says it all. This 30 minutes in nature a day can increase mood, well-being, meaning in life, and mindfulness. And it was a pilot study with small sample size. They looked at what happened when people spent at least 30 minutes a day in nature for 30 days. And that there's more that can be said about that. But when we were last talking about this, you were describing how it is for the guests that you have, and how you see them when they arrive, and how they are when they leave.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's actually sort of when we are so our season was ultimately, it was delayed, so we couldn't actually, I mean, what I consider to be the sort of couple of my favorite, I love all the seasons, I love the changing seasons, I love from going from spring into summer, but the ultimate time for me is that sort of April, May, June time, when everything is fresh, you know, everything's beginning to green up, and you've got all the flowers, and as you can see that meadow field, that's when it really comes into its own. You know, all the grasses and the wildflowers start to grow. And you know, and we missed that last year because we couldn't welcome guests until July to come and share this open space. But so I did feel a little bit sort of bereft that people were in our first year, that they were missing that great time with that, you know, the new season coming in, and the year really beginning to flourish. But when we could welcome guests, and it was wonderful, they'd come, and I can remember one family in particular, it was raining, as it does in the summer, and she arrived with 2 young children and her husband, and she was quite keen. I like to say hello and just, this is me, and if you need me, call me. But I could tell that obviously they'd had a few hours in the car with 2 young children, and it was raining, and she just wanted to get into her accommodation. So I was very aware. I thought, right, well, I'll just say hi and let them get on with it. And then 4 days later, when they left, she was she was a changed woman. I could see she was happy to have. You know, she was so much more relaxed, and it was just, for me, to sort of see somebody arrive at the beginning of their holiday clearly quite stressed, but then you know, a few days later, to have been able to lose that stress, having been able to relax and spend time in nature and being outdoors, was a prime example of how beneficial it is. So yeah, it was quite a pivotal point for me. We knew we were doing something good when we were starting the glamping site. However, to sort of physically see it was something else. So yeah.
Oh, and just looking at those pictures, and even looking at the pictures, makes me feel happier inside. It's just glorious that you've got those views. And
we thought purposefully of the direction that the tents would face, and that was west facing, so that they caught the sunset of an evening. So the sun kind of comes up behind the tents, and then it sets in front of them, and that's just the best view, really, that sunset. And obviously we're surrounded by arable fields, as you can see in this picture. So there's always something happening, which is I know of interest to people that don't sort of have access to that. So the combining and the field work and the growing crops, I mean, that's always changing. And we also have a lot of wildflower strips, and there's one in the very front of this picture. That's part of a Natural England program that we're involved with. And we have certain areas of our fields are set aside to grow wildflowers in for the birds and the bees and the animals, and to benefit from. But again, they're such a beautiful thing to look at. And the sunflowers aren't quite out in that one, but they did come sort of later on in September.
I remember seeing your pictures of the sunflowers. They're beautiful. That's in that study that I was showing at the start. They start with some figures from Natural England that were really, really quite worrying, because it was saying that something like, I think the study that they quoted was 2009, where they said fewer than 10% of children in the UK regularly spend time out in nature.
Wow.
And that really shocked me. But there was also, through their study, they were saying that one of the reasons they think this time in nature is so powerful is because as a society we've started to move away from being in nature, and there's the urban build-up and offices, and so when people do get out into it, it's getting back in touch with something that's at the heart of us. And it goes back to our roots.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I sort of heard recently that we spend 90% of our time indoors, and I think even more so over this last year, where with the homeschooling and all our sort of Zoom meetings that we're participating in, and so even more so than perhaps, you know, when the children were at school and they had their break time outdoors and their PE sessions and game sessions and after school activities. So and the winter months too, I think that window of opportunity to actually get outdoors. And I think for me as well, it's important to remember that it doesn't matter what the weather's doing. If you've got the right clothes on, if you've got the right gear on, you still need to get outdoors and just get, even, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour every day, get out there and just have a look and see what you can see. And there's always something, even in the middle of the, you know, deepest, darkest winter, there'll always be something that you can see. Where, you know, so I mean, like the daffodils, for example, I started noticing them poking out of the ground back, you know, last month in January, and slowly but surely they're beginning to appear, and the snowdrops and crocuses. So yeah, there's plenty happening.
You've just made me think of that phrase. I think it's from the Swedish schools, where they've said there's no bad weather, only bad clothing.
Yes, exactly right. And I mean, yeah, it's the best investment you can have. If you're kitted out for all weather, then there's absolutely no stopping you from going outdoors. And in fact, there's nothing nicer, especially in the winter, when you've been out on maybe a cold and damp walk, and you come back to a cozy home, and you've got that whole hygge feeling, you know, that feeling of being cozy, and you know, and I think there's no better feeling than that for me.
And that's in that study, the 30 minutes a day one, some of these scientific studies can feel a bit dry and dull, because they're having to measure it against scales. You know, can we evidence that this is happening? But in their results, they found that the effects was stronger when it was more than 30 minutes. They found that meaning and mindfulness were increased when it was wilderness areas, and they defined that as the places like forests and anything that wasn't quite as structured as, say, an urban park. But then they acknowledged in that research that any green space and getting out into nature, any variety, would be beneficial. It was just they got some different results the more wild it was, which was interesting. I like that. They also said that, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say about the mindfulness. I think, and the science is really important, I think, because that goes hand in hand with the sort of the approach that some take, which is the sort of the mindfulness thing. I think if it's all supported by science, then it kind of makes it more believable and acceptable, because the facts are there, it's been proven. And with the mindfulness, you know, I think that some people, that's a little bit misunderstood, and to me, being mindful is just being present. So it's about, you know, you're outdoors and you're just noticing things, and you can tune out the background noise, you know, whether it's the traffic on the roads, or I don't know, there's some building work going on somewhere, depending on where you are. You can tune all that out and just completely focus on what's in your immediate area, and whether it is the birds, or whether it is, like this time of year, we've got lambs in the fields. But wherever you are, there will always be, you just tune into whatever you can hear sort of immediately around you. And that's about being mindful. And I think sometimes that can be a little bit misunderstood, but it's definitely you know, a big part of that sort of nature therapy.
Yes, I think anything that just gets you out of yourself and able to perhaps clear some of the stuff going on in your head is helpful.
the just looking at this picture now with all the wildflowers that are growing in the grasses, you can, if you lay down sort of in the middle of that, you can hear the insects, and you can see, you know, the ladybirds and the butterflies that fill it, and the bumblebees, and just life getting on, and nature, and it's just, that to me is nothing. That's just quite special. Being able to do that is quite special.
Oh, that's lovely. It feels like we've talked about this Wurzel Gummidge quote, and it feels like that this is the right point to share the quote that you found listening to the new series of Wurzel Gummidge.
I mean, so it's Wurzel Gummidge is Mackenzie Crook, who he's the actor, I think, famously known for his part in the Pirates of the Caribbean. But I also, after he did all of that, he did a series called Detectorists, and then more recently he's done this sort of Wurzel Gummidge, and it's only 3 episodes, but wow, I mean, during the winter months, when we all crave for the warm weather and the summer, and the leaves back on the trees and the flowers and stuff, these programs, I mean, if you can find them, I think they're on the BBC iPlayer. They were described as being warm, affectionate, and resolutely feel good. And in one of, and which is what I think we need at the moment. We just need to be reminded of you know, what is out there in nature. And in the Wurzel Gummidge, this really struck me, the episode called The Green Man. He's having a conversation with another, so if people don't know who Wurzel Gummidge is, he's a scarecrow who comes to life, and he's having a conversation with another scarecrow called Earthy, and he asks her, "What's new, Earthy?" And she says, "The buds on the blackthorn, the spider's webs." And then he asks her, "And what's old?" And she says, "The chalk, the church, the songs of the birds." And he says, "Perfect." And to me, when I heard that just kind of gave me goosebumps, because that it just encompasses that whole feeling of nature and being outdoors, and the mindfulness and being aware of what's happening around you. So yeah, it was just really, I loved hearing it.
And that can be the question that we take when we go off on our allotted walking time at the moment, if there's just what's new, and we don't have to be out in wilderness to look for that.
Not at all. I mean, wherever you are, there's always birds building nests, and you know, and the one, there's certain times of the year, there's nothing more special for me than finding an eggshell that has been, you know, that's been dropped by a parent bird. And I love these treasures. I did a blog, I think it was last year, about what I call it land combing. So everyone's heard of beach combing, and I love, and being nowhere near the sea where we live, but I love to land comb, and I love to find, sometimes you can find fossils.
Oh, we've temporarily lost Jules. We'll wait and see if she comes back on.
But it regurgitates, it's a bit like a fur ball from a cat, but it regurgitates all the stuff that it can't, that its body can't digest. And if you look really closely, I mean, they look really foul, but if you look really closely, you can see little bones from animals that an owl has eaten, and they're just amazing. And I love that.
We lost you for a second just before you say, but that's all right, because I think you came in on regurgitations.
I did.
Pellets.
No, I that was probably my greatest treasure I found, are owl pellets, because they're so much hidden in them, you know, little animal bones that an owl hasn't been able to digest. And it's
I've never seen one.
A little insight into an owl's life, and that's the other thing. I mean, the great thing about our accommodation, you know, what we've aimed for is we've gone sort of high-end glamping, so we kind of refer to it as self-catering under canvas.
Yes.
So you have all the luxury, you know, the benefits of a self-catering property. You've got your own bathroom, your own kitchen, and lovely cozy beds to sleep in, and a log burning stove, and sofas, and a dining table, all of that stuff. But instead of sort of bricks and mortar walls, you've got canvas walls. So you're just that little bit closer to what's going on outside. And whether it's the dawn chorus, or whether it's birds hooting in the night, or whatever it is, you're just that little bit closer to it. So it's you know, that's the great thing about the glamping.
Really lovely.
Yeah.
And this is the second positive psychology intervention. I don't know if I explained at the start what a positive psychology intervention is. It's a really wordy way of saying it's just an intentional activity that we do to feel better. The ones that I'm sharing, though, have all been tested out scientifically with various studies. There are some limitations to them, as there are with everything, but I think it's useful to look at them and take from it what you want to take. So that first one is the going for 30 minutes daily in nature. The health warning with that one is they say that if you don't mix it up, and if you stick to doing the same thing, then your brain will just get used to it, and it won't be as valuable.
They say the same though for exercise, don't they?
Yes.
If you swim for 20 minutes every day, then after a while it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, so the key is just mix it up. And, and this is another one that has had some really good research behind it. It's called Engaging with Beauty. So it starts with having a beauty log or a journal. A lot of people are journaling right now, so having that. And then going once a day to look for beauty in 3 different situations. One of them is something beautiful in nature, which is why that one's in here. And this could be something that would be easy to do on a walk. Then the second part is something beautiful that's human made. And they said, so arts and crafts, just looking around for something that's been created. And the third part, something beautiful in human behaviour. And this is another reason I wanted to include this one in our conversation, because we're talking from this time of a pandemic, and there's lots of dramas being played out in, you know, you look on social media and people's feelings are running quite high. So this stepping back and looking for three beautiful things, but the last one being human behaviour, and describing that in a log, I think is a really lovely intervention. The research that came from it that said that it boosted hope, which there's all sorts of separate studies on that, about how powerful that can be for our well-being and our health. It's also something that just raises your awareness of beauty and looking around you. So it comes back to the mindfulness that you've talked about, you know, just being aware of what's around you. And then that last part with the something beautiful in human behaviour has a bit of a spiraling effect, that you look for the good things that people are doing, and it can help you to see things that you can do differently as well. So really simple, but it's very powerful, that one.
No, I think that I mean, that sort of sounds a little bit like holding a gratitude journal as well, isn't it? You're just being aware of you know, being thankful for things in your life. Reminds you of all the positive things that you have, and I think absolutely focus on the positives and not the negatives, and that definitely shifts your mindset. So and again, sort of being outdoors in nature is a great place to start. I mean, they recommend that if you spend any time outdoors, the best time to do it is in the mornings. That's when you sort of benefit mostly from it. And I mean, especially if you've got you know, a day ahead of you, you know, you're going to be sat at a desk, so it just sets you up, it recharges your batteries, it clears your mind, it just gets you ready for your day ahead. And because the other thing I've learned recently is, so obviously the obvious benefits of being outdoors and being in daylight and being exposed to daylight is the vitamin D, which is great for your bone. You know, aside from the mental health and physical health and concentration levels, but apparently the amount of sunlight, it's that sort of exposure to real sunlight rather than artificial light is really important. And apparently even on an overcast and cloudy day, overcast day, you can still, so on a really bright sunny day, so here's a little bit of science, we can get they measure sunlight in lux, lux, lux. So it's on a bright sunny day you can have more than 100,000 lux day exposure to sunlight, but being indoors it's only maybe 200 to 300 lux. But on an overcast day there's still about 5,000, approximately 5,000 lux. So even when you don't think the sun is shining and you're not going to benefit from it, that just being outside, whatever the weather, is definitely going to you know, have a positive impact on especially on your sort of physical health.
There's in some training that I'd had, somebody described, I don't know if this is an urban myth, but it was a psychologist who was working with somebody with depression and had apparently said to the client, I want you to walk home from our meeting today and just phone me up when you get back and tell me how many chimneys you saw. And the person would say, okay, I'll do that. I don't really see the point in it, but I'll do it. And this person did their roughly, I think it was a 30-minute walk home, counted the chimneys, and then reported back to the psychologist, who said that he didn't really care how many chimneys there were, but how did the person feel? And they said, well, better than I've felt in a long time. And it was that bit about just walking and looking up and having your face up to the sky, seeing what's around you, and something different to think about, which that's powerful.
I'd say, oh gosh, yeah, for sure. And of course there's the mindfulness there as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And taking your mind off the, you know, the rubbish that might be going on for you at that point, and it's just time out from that daily routine and daily life. But and of course, you know, another major benefit is it you know, being outdoors, it helps with your sleep.
Yes.
And sleep, of course, is crucial to how we all function. And it's the sort of the foundation, I think, for us all. Where, you know, if we've had a good night's sleep, then we feel better, we live better, we make better choices in life, and
and I hear that from a lot of people at the moment who are sitting at desks at home and saying that they're not sleeping as well, and just having that break from all of that to go and get outside. I think everything that you've described here is just really reinforced that. I think it's just, there's our Wurzel Gummidge quote. It's beautiful to take away, and just go out and look for what's new.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Well, Jules, thank you so much for chatting with me and talking all this through. It's been really lovely. As I've said many times, I can't wait for the point when I can come and visit your beautiful tents. If anyone else is interested, the contact details are there, and my details are there.
No, I love it. I love talking about the outdoors. I just think that we're very lucky that I mean, where we live, you know, we can access it all, and I think but I think, to be honest, it doesn't matter, especially at the moment where we have these restrictions in place. I think it's important to go out and just have a look and see what you can find on your doorstep, and you'd be surprised, I think.
Yes.
I'd definitely be surprised, and it changes, so it's not going to be, you know, one day to the next there'll be new things to look at.
So
especially
go out, have a look at different things, see what's new, and just take that time out.
Definitely.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Marguerite. Thank you. It's been fab.
It's been lovely.